Today I'm going to show you how I made my Star Wars panel inspired by props and villainy, made mostly from EVA foam. I start by taking contact cement used for laminate countertops, and I paint the entire back of this cardboard box. This box is from a model kit, so it gives you an idea of how thin it is. You paint the cement on and wait till it's tacky. It's best if you can paint it onto both pieces. Here I'm going to paint it onto the 3mm thick EVA foam. Once it's tacky, here I probably did it a little sooner than I should, but it worked. You then put it on, and I'm using a laminate roller to force the two pieces together. Now I'm taking EVA craft foam. I think this is 1mm or 1.5mm, stuff that you get from your typical craft store, and I'm going to use that for the sides. Again, putting it on both sides. I purposely oversized the edges and then went through and trimmed it up, and then took a heat gun, which kind of seals it a little bit, helps with the adherence of whatever you're going to prime it with. We'll get to that later. Then I pull out one of my boxes of Greebles, which I knew had some failed prints in it, and I used those 4 little pieces you saw me pull out to reinforce the corners, because this is a very flimsy box. Now I'm starting to attach Greebles. The first thing I want is, it's always fun to have a hose coming out of your box, so I have a little connector here that I found, and I have the hose that goes along with it, but because of the reinforcement it doesn't fit the hole, so I had to kind of cut it to work around the little reinforcement. And once I'm happy with that, I then get my hot glue gun going and glue this in place. Adding another side Greeble, this is the top to a Brita water filter. So once the water filter is spent, I cut them open, and then the top and the bottom both make interesting Greebles that I've not seen used anywhere else. And what's a display panel without pieces of a hard drive? So I grab one of the scrap hard drives I have in my collection and disassemble it. Pulling out all these pieces, not realizing the only one I'm going to use is the little drive motor, which is what everyone loves to use. It works well. And if you've made it this far in the video, a subscribe would be great. So then I cut out, again using just the simple thin craft foam, I cut out a interesting shape to put on the box. This whole thing is being made basically on the fly. I have no idea of what my next step's going to be until I get to it. The red color you see is a primer paint that supposedly it will adhere to the foam well, and it did. These are Greebles that I 3D printed a while ago for adding 3 of the light panels that you see in them. I think I got these from the Wumpus room. I add a little bit of glue here to hold down some backing that's going to diffuse the light when it comes through. I probably should have waited on putting that in because I have a lot of painting to go and I had to cover that up a few times. Test fitting to make sure that the little acrylic panels fit. found a place to put the hard drive motor. Then in my Greeble box, I found another piece. This was from when I was working on making the Andor flight box. Here I'm cutting some square holes that I'm going to use to put some buttons in. These are functional switches, so I'm going to make use of them. The ones on the side here that you see me painting over, those are not functional. Those are 3D printed switches to look like the functional switches. This is EVA foam primer. Helps with paint bleed. That is something that happens a lot with EVA foam, where it soaks up the paint. So you need to coat it with something like Mod Podge. After that, I did some latex weathering, painted it black, painted it silver, more latex weathering, and now I'm here painting with blue, which is going to be the base color of the main body. Unfortunately, I did not get any of the footage from me peeling the latex off. Would have made for a great ASMR video, but I don't have it, unfortunately. But as you can see, because I did 2 layers of latex in between the different layers of paint, it definitely gives some depth to the paint job and the weathering look. This is the bottom of that same Brita filter, and the grid that's going to go on the front, which is just a 3D print that I modeled up to fit the area I had. I'm painting it with this rust wash that's very watered down, and then going back over just a little bit to undo some of what I did. The hole that you see in the middle of the grid, that's where I'm going to put a piece that comes from the smuggler's room. It's part of a kit. I've been piecemealing out pieces from that kit into different things that I've built. So I get it in place with some super glue. You can barely even see it as it's there, and I go into one of my electronic Greeble boxes and found some just white LEDs, which will work perfect for this. I put one behind each of the acrylic panels, again with the diffuser in between to spread the light a little bit. Make sure that they're glued down well. And then I put one on 2 different edges of the smuggler's room piece that will illuminate the edge and the etching that you see that he did. So what I did was, while it still had the protective coating, I squeegeed red paint into his etching, and then once dry I peeled off the coating, and that's what gives the little red coloring to the panel. Now I'm going to run all these lights off of one battery, but each component's going to have its own switch. Here I'm just putting a piece of foam behind each of the light sources so that they don't bleed back. Eventually I need to reinforce and make a back for this panel so I can hang it on the wall. But until I do that, the lights were bleeding into each other and out the back of the panel when I was testing it. The final touch is to mount the hard drive motor with some M3 socket head cap screws, and then do a tiny bit of final weathering and attach the hose. Once that's all done, the panel is pretty much done until I can figure out how I'm going to mount it on the wall. I thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and got something out of what I have built today. And thanks to Kelly at Props and Villainy for inspiring this build.